The web is filled with conversations about the benefits of replacing a car's factory air filter with an intake that features a cone-type filter. Depending on the engine capacity, such a modification can bring several effects. For many models, the main thing is the change in sound when you press the gas pedal. Thanks to the cold air intake, we change the main assumptions of the factory. Instead of the quietest possible engine operation, we want a more bassy, aggressive sound coming from under the hood. Many people claim that by installing CAI intakes in naturally aspirated cars, they distinctly feel an increase in engine power and torque. The increases are usually so minimal that they are almost imperceptible on paper, similar to a sports insert in place of the original air filter. With the change of my car, I became interested in the topic of the cone and its action in a turbocharged petrol engine with a low capacity, just under 1.4 liters. Browsing the offers of various manufacturers, it quickly turned out that the choice of complete intakes for new cars is very limited and their prices are not small. Many years ago, when I bought a Shimoda intake for a Civic D16 Fall 1, it cost $60. The cheapest intake for the Suzuki Swift Sport is around $300, and no one sells it in Poland. I decided to write to the manufacturers asking about availability and possible effects, including sound effects. My message was of interest to MST Performance from Taiwan, which specializes in producing intakes for various car brands. MST proposed to send a test kit for free as they just introduced a dedicated kit for my car. Before proceeding with the installation, I decided to record how the car sounded on the standard air filter. For several days, it was very windy non-stop, so we limited the recordings outside. Listen to how the car sounded before. For the test to be reliable, I also visited one of the dynos in Lublin. There was quite a surprise regarding the engine power. According to the manufacturer's catalog, the 2018 Suzuki Swift Sport has 140 horsepower and 230 Newton-meters of torque. It's worth mentioning that the car weighs 970 kilograms, so it really drives nicely. However, it turned out that the average of several measurements was exactly 154.7 horsepower and 256 Newton-meters. The installation of the intake from MST Performance was taken care of by the Lublin company Shift R Tuning and Motorsport, which usually does much more interesting projects than changing the air intake in a car with a 1.4 engine. The kit was divided into parts, and everything necessary for installation was included in the set, including hose clamps and screws. The installation was relatively simple. After removing the factory intake, we used the instruction manual included in the set and a photo indicating where the intake would be mounted. This greatly facilitated the whole process. Dedicated kits often create problems with fitting, but the set from MST Performance turned out to be very well prepared and fit perfectly. You'll agree that the whole thing looks simply great under the hood of a car. The cone filter is nicely enclosed, preventing it from catching hot air from under the hood. The air intake is located just above the radiator cap, But it's worth mentioning that the short air intake arm does not allow for the reinstallation of the factory engine cover. The Suzuki Swift is not among the best insulated cars, and the lack of such a cover has increased the sound of the working injectors. After tightening all the screws and hose clamps, it was time for a test. We warmed up the car's engine, and here are the results. I must admit, I didn't expect such an effect. I was hoping for a more bassy rumble from the engine, but it turned out that the intake significantly amplified the sound of the working turbine. Even under light load, the aggressive sound of the turbine is audible, and under load during driving, it's even more interesting. During calm, everyday driving, the car behaves the same. It's still quiet, but standing at lights, you can hear the injectors. When you press the gas pedal harder, you hear how the cone sucks in air and the turbo spins up. After releasing the gas, the car breathes a sigh of relief, letting out a loud hiss. The previous test of the power and torque of the factory car already surprised us, and we were curious about the changes brought by the CAI from MST Performance. We decided to check it out. Tests showed that the power of the car increased to 160 horsepower, and the torque decreased by 0.8 Newton-meter. Analyzing the dyno chart, it can be noticed that the car became more responsive at lower revs. In conclusion, the complete intake from MST Performance allowed the Suzuki to gain exactly 5.3 horsepower and a much more aggressive sound of the working turbine. A few points should also be added for how everything looks under the hood. I invite you to subscribe and comment. See you in the next video.